Hello and welcome to Film Companion South. In this episode of Ask VR, we're going to be talking about NGK starring Surya and directed by Selvaraghavan. Rohan Jay asks, do you think NGK is set in the Pudupetta universe? I don't know if you mean if it's set in the universe like the way Super Deluxe is set in the Aranyakandam universe. No, I don't think it's in that way. But there's definitely, I think that's the movie that Selvaraghavan set out to make. That's what I think after watching the movie. So in that way, I think the movies are related because there you saw how somebody moves from the lowly ranks of a political party, like becomes a gangster and then kind of rises up the ranks and becomes a top gangster. I think this is the same thing in politics. That's what happens. So I think in that way the movies are related. S2201B says, do you think Selvaraghavan has lost his magic given that his last two films have disappointed a vast majority? Or has he fallen prey to his own style of art and got lost in the process? It's very difficult to say things like lost his magic because like in both films, I think there was, in these films you're talking about, I think there have been some compromises. I think, again, this is just the way I think it is. I think in Irandam Ulagam, a lot of the visual effects got compromised. So, like, the connect wasn't there with the universes that Selvaraghavan was trying to build. It's very easy to say, well, why didn't they go for the right visual effects? But they're expensive, they are all kinds of things. So, maybe that's what happened. So, what I'm trying to say is that maybe there are some external reasons as well that these films are not working for a lot of people and not just Selvaraghavan having lost his magic. Because if you just read the screenplay of Irandam Ulagam, or if you just read, I don't think I'm disappointed with this film NGK, sure, but I don't think it's a bad film by any means. It's a compromised film maybe, I don't know, but I don't think it's a bad film. It's not like because we see bad films all the time in Tamil cinema, and this is not that at all. Sriram K29 says, do you think Selvaraghavan would have compromised in the content as his earlier films were received very late by the audience like Pudupette, Ayirathulorvan, or maybe because you don't have enough support and production distribution for Selvaraghavan, he's been compelled to make a film for general audiences? Because they usually go for an A certificate, whereas NGK is U. I don't know if it's for all audiences as much as for the Surya audience, because Surya is a star who seems very, very specific about, this family audience image. So actually that's why I couldn't even get this connect between these two stars, because like why would such an actor want to work with such a director? But having said that, it's very difficult to say where the compromise happened because we don't know what was shot, but there have been reports of the movie having been extensively reshot, and lots of like problematic things having happened along the way. So it's very difficult to say whether I think only if we know what Selvaraghavan's original screenplay idea was, can we even say things like whether there was a compromise or not. Without knowing that, it's very difficult to say these things. Sharath N97 says, can an artistic director like Selvaraghavan never strike the right balance when working with a huge star? Do you think stars are constantly interfering with a director's vision in the fear of disappointing their fan base? Again, it's tough to say because is the movie this way because Surya came and took off a lot of scenes? I don't know. These are all speculations which are, unless somebody comes and from behind the scenes and tells us, we don't know. So, yes, but generally speaking, when an artistically minded director works with a big star, in the sense that a star who has a very huge, image and a fan base that likes that image, it's usually a problem. So the only instances that I've seen, very, very few instances we've seen of this kind of star. I'm not talking about a Vijay Sethupathi kind of star because he's a different kind of star. He's a very flexible star. But, when Gautam Menon makes a Yenna Arindal, again we see the same kind of problem because the Ajit fan base, the hardcore Ajit fan base say they're not satisfied with the movie. The hardcore Gautam Menon fan base say they're not satisfied with the movie. So there's always it's very difficult for an individualistic kind of director to make like his own or her own kind of film when there's a big star, because there's always some kind of some weirdness that happens from the initial to the final vision. Yoshit Roy says, how deviated it is from Selva's usual track of filmmaking. The women in Selva's films are unique yet strongly written, but Sai Pallavi didn't seem so. The mass elements were forcefully fit in so they don't abide by the plot. Can this film, which is made to satisfy superstar's image? I don't think it's some empty superstar worshipping film, because if you look at it, you are saying that this is a man whose journey is not a perfect journey. He's had an affair. How many superstars have you seen where they agree to a screenplay where they're having an affair? Now, it's a different question that we don't know why Surya, the character of NGK, had this affair. Did he have an affair because he thought that by having this affair, he could manipulate Vanati into giving him what he wants? That is, was he having this affair for the greater good? Or did he get corrupted along the way and say, I'm just going to screw anybody I want because I have that power now. So is that affair a part of his moral degradation? So we have two meanings for this affair. We don't know which one Surya's is. But leaving that thing apart, I think it's impressive that somebody like Surya even took on the fight, because there is no doubt that the affair actually happened, and I think that those kinds of things are important. And so I don't think it was done to satisfy a superstar's image as such. Even the mass elements, like I think everybody universally hated that song and its placement, but I think even the fights, if you see, I don't think those fights are random fights, because when you see how he's first made to fight in a that he's first made to clean up a toilet, and then later the final fight, like that big fight with those female assassins, that also happens in, I don't know, some enormous toilet. It looks like some mansion's toilet or something like that, but still the point is that it's a men's restroom. So he's moved from this kind of small dirty restroom to this Mission Impossible kind of restroom where all these people are attacking him, but that's also part of the ambition. So I don't think it's just an empty fight sequence. There is some meaning behind it. So yeah, I think that's what I think. Naveen Suresh says, do you think Selvaragavan missed the chord when it comes to utilizing the star in Surya? The lukewarm second half did have a lot of scope but ended up under. See, this is a very difficult star movie, because when you say star, which it means that you're talking about the image that they've built around themselves, you're talking about the persona they built around themselves. So this is not that kind of star movie at all. This is not this average Surya movie where people go and say, oh, such a nice boy, he's upholding all the moral values. That's the usual Surya movie. This is not that. So I think right from the beginning, yes, it's an odd fit. And I don't know how much of the compromise that we see is due to the director and how much due to the star. But I don't think utilizing the star itself was a problem. I mean, but if you ask me, would somebody like Dhanush, whose star persona and signature are very different, would have made a better fit? Maybe yes, because we accept Dhanush in certain grey shades easier than we would accept someone like Surya. So again, that is something that depends on how the star has consciously built up his or her image. For example, Vijay Sethupathi we would accept in a good role, we would accept in a bad role, we would accept in a grey shades role. Whereas with Surya, the way he has consciously built up his image, this kind of movie does become a bit of a problem in terms of the mass fan base accepting it. Ashwin Kumar says, why the film didn't explore the avenues in which it created interest. For instance, the corporate owners meeting, the conversation of NGK's father with CBI, and 5 minutes of CM conversation with NGK. This made the narrative bits and pieces where the writing felt incomplete. Yeah, I know a lot of points that seem to be interesting seem to be kind of like left abandoned. But I'll tell you what my main two problems with NGK are. One is, we don't have a solid end goal for Surya. So he starts out by saying, he's doing good. Okay, but doing good is a very generic thing. So what is it? Does he want to build that cancer hospital? Does he want more? Does he end up doing good? In other words, like I said for that Vanati angle, is he a man who thinks that you cannot make an omelette without breaking some eggs, and therefore says, ultimately I want to do good. So if the way to get there is only by killing all these people, including my parents, then so be it, because at the end I will be in a position of power, and the people will elect me and I will become powerful, and then I can do good. Is that the angle of the story? Or are we seeing the story of someone who gets gradually corrupted, so he's no longer in the angle of I want to do good. He got in with that angle, but now he's gotten corrupted, and so we are no longer seeing that. It's very difficult to see which of these two is the actual character trajectory for this person. Are we seeing a man do bad in order to do good, or are we seeing a man who wanted to do good and then ended up doing bad and became bad himself? That's very difficult to kind of see, because in the end also he seems to be manipulating so much. Or is he somewhere in the middle? Because he's when he speaks to that Bala Singh character, you do sense that there's a bit of ego in him, but then that ego is still a vast way away from saying I want to kill my parents to get to where I am. So I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that I felt should be explained or explored, but kind of didn't happen here. So that was my problem with the film. And also the fact that there was no tangible end goal. See, if you have it, why does he do this? Is a little clearer, then audience can say, okay, the end justifies these means, or the end doesn't justify these means. So in which case, if the end justifies these means, we like the character. If the end doesn't justify the means, we dislike the character. But here, the end itself is not very clearly in sight, because he's lost sight of the end. So Or is that also deliberate? So the fact that he has lost sight of the end, therefore the movie also loses sight of the end. Are we looking at that kind of a screenplay? It's very hard to say which one is which. So again, like one of the interesting things that somebody who criticized my review and said I didn't understand the film said was that Selva is trying a Bandersnatch kind of approach, where you're kind of, he's giving you a lot of options and saying, you know, you pick the option that you want to see. I don't know if that's what he's trying to do, because is this a question of writing that's been compromised, or are you actually saying, I'm just going to give you hints about Vanadi, you make up your own backstory, I'm going to give you hints about this person, you make up your own backstory? Is that what it is? I don't know, it's hard to say. So I'm just not going to say anything more about this aspect right now. Bruce Wayne says, given that the duration is 148 minutes, do you think the director could have added a few more scenes to depict Surya's grey side? I definitely think so, and not just because it's 148 minutes. See, if it's 148 minutes and if you add 10 more minutes and it's 158 minutes, it's not going to kill the audience as long as they are invested in the story. I think if an audience is really clued in and invested in a story, they won't care even for a 3-hour movie. They'll just sit and watch it because they're invested in it. Where the problem becomes is when they're not invested in it. So I'm not getting into the head of the protagonist, and I don't know what he's trying to do. Therefore, my distance is making the length a problem. Not otherwise, I don't think people really care whether it's 148 minutes or more. PSKK says, do you think the star image of Surya spoiled the Selvaraghavan touch? The dream duet is, like he's brought it up, the intimacy between Surya and Rakul is not conveyed well. The duration confirms that there are lots of cuts which break the flow. Again, it's hard to say why this happened this way. Is it a star image thing, whatever it is? But yeah, the dream duet was very difficult, because see, even if you look at the dance kind of duet in at the point where Sonia Agarwal sleeps with Ravi Krishna in 7G Rainbow Colony, we still see the act, you know, we see them sleeping. Here in the second half, we see this Vanati character in a bathrobe and with wet hair, and she's having some breakfast and all that kind of stuff. Dinner, whatever it is. And you're also seeing, these are the subtle touches that you see. Look at the way Surya is having this very posh 5-star, you know, he's from Srivilliputtur and he's an organic farmer. Nothing says that that man cannot be at ease at a 5-star, but look at the very, like he's holding the fork and knife correctly. He's having a very continental kind of thing. I forget what it is an omelette or a pasta or something like that, but he's using it properly, you know. He's not some guy who doesn't know. So which means that he's gotten used to the ways of these 5-star people also. So that's conveyed in that one scene. But again, behind that is like, that visual is a small detail, but how much do we actually, you know about this, what his motives were for this affair? I think I would have wanted to know more about that, you know. Hemant says, there are lots of close-up shots and camera movements in the first half and very less in the second half. Do you think this is done deliberately? If yes, what the director DOP is trying to convey with this? I don't know. I didn't particularly notice the fact that there was an imbalance of close-ups and camera movements in the first half and the second half. So yeah, I guess I would like to watch this. I mean, I am going to watch this movie again anyway. So I'll probably reply to your tweet if I do. Contractor Hari says, the character transformation was aided mainly by visuals and score. It left me with an incomplete feeling similar to most of Selva's past works. He mentioned to you about writing this film with a central character in mind, and I think he ambitiously tried exploring NGK's psyche thoughts. See, you cannot convey a character's transformation mainly through visuals and score. What I'm trying to say is, you know, like a lot of things have been happening, like being said in the net, right? Like, okay, the first half, this kind of light is used, in the second half, that kind of light. Now, those kinds of things will add to a characterization, okay? They cannot become the characterization. If you're showing something, that the lighting supplements it and takes it to a different level. Like, for example, you know, if you take either the Michael portions are in green, are coded in green. The Siddharth portions, that is, I forget his name right now, are coded in blue, and the Madhavan portions, the Inba portions, are coded in red. Okay, but even if you don't notice this, those individual portions still work because those characters work. You know what their motivations are, everything. But imagine if we have to understand the character through the red or through the blue or through the green, each person will have a different kind of interpretation coming out of it. So that is not really how lighting and stuff works. It supplements it. So the point is, even if you don't get the red and the green, there is something happening. And if you get the red and the green, then you know the film lifts to another level. It becomes, it becomes, oh wow, the lighting is like adding so much to that scene or whatever. But that cannot become the text itself. That cannot become the scene itself. Is how I look at it. Vignesh Balachandran says, do you think excellent epilogue would have lifted the film and overshadowed the flaws? Do you think the bland ending is what makes it less compelling to watch? Now, I think apart from the bland ending, there were a lot of little problems like we've just discussed, like not getting into the headspace of the various characters, not knowing exactly, what's happening where. One scene, for instance, like he goes, he cycles up to that celebratory meet, and it's being held for him. Everyone is like, there are banners and all put up, and yet nobody recognizes him. They send him away, and Sai Pallavi says, let's go away. And then he goes there, and it's almost as if, there are lots of scenes that are very conveniently built, and you feel some information is missing in between, and you wonder why. Praveen Mohan says, if not for Vanati's intervention at the market fight, would NGK kill his wife Geeta? Also, the point is, we never know at any point. Okay, at first we see them sharing one kuchi ice kind of thing, okay. So at that point we think, okay, maybe love happened, whatever it is. But after that one little bit, and maybe she says, I love this manvasane on you or anything like that, but he doesn't really say anything back to her. So at any point, we are not sure whether she's just like a wife that he's okay with, or like is he deeply in love with her, or whatever it is. That again is another, like a missing component. What is this man's feeling when she's standing in front of him and saying, I smelt that manvasana and now I'm smelling some perfume, and ipdi nadanda, the perfume will be like this. Now if I do this, the perfume will be like this. But this kind of perfume is only if somebody's like sleeping with you kind of thing. What is his response? Does he want to deny it? Does he want to tell her, no, I'm kind of, does he share his plans with her? Does he know what it is? I mean, it's so vague. I mean, like, what is that thing? Because when a wife does this, the husband is going to have some response. But you just see a man standing there, and like, we are also, because he's not reacting, we don't know what his response is. So I think those are the things, who are our real problems here. Anand B says, question or article on the why, could it also be due to mainstream movies being expected to be plot driven as opposed to character driven? Plot demands certain events to happen at specific times, but the writer director cannot afford to show the characters got there. No. See, that is not the why. It's like, see, you can be character driven or plot driven. I would say Pudupette is a character driven movie. It's not exactly like, you don't watch Pudupette for the breathtaking plot or something. It's not some big suspense plot or something like that. But you have, at every point, you are clued into why this man is doing what he does. At all the time, you're clued into that man's, see, the protagonist means you are part of that person's journey. He's the journey, or his or hers is the journey, whether it's a female protagonist or a male protagonist. That's the journey you're going to follow. Whether it's a good guy or bad guy or somewhere in the middle, that journey, because you're following that, you don't mind if somebody on the side is not explained very well, but that person's, you have to be in that person's shoes and follow that journey. That's what I mean by why, not whether it's plot driven or character driven. NGK, that is the person himself is called NGK. I think when Nidalgal Ravi says about how he earned respect and what will stay forever, I think it is the one that which drives NGK to achieve high position. Ravi stares at NGK in the pre-climax. Maybe he got disappointed how his son had driven. See, again, this is driven his son in the wrong path. Possible interpretation, but I'm saying that there is nothing in the film that either supports this or denies this. Everything is a, see, that's what I'm saying in my article. I said, see, if you are interpreting one or two things in a movie, extrapolating one or two things, it's fine, because you're like, you're the rest of it is still called. But if you're extrapolating almost every character's motivations and purpose and things like that, I don't know, is this a next level, next generation Bandersnatch kind of thing, or are we just like looking at a screenplay that's not doing what it's supposed to do? It's tough to say. Some of you are going to ask, why are you bringing up this point only in a big director's movie? Supposing a smaller director is there and you don't like his movie, or you find problems with the screenplay, will you be talking like that? So that's something that I want to bring up preemptively. It's because these bigger directors, these major directors, they have earned this right. Some people, let's take like the Ilayaraja. Why like looking for so much in Ilayaraja songs? Can't you look for something in something else? Because these people have earned the right that we kind of say, even if something is not working, we kind of really get into it and analyze it in a way we do not with other people, simply because they have earned the right. They have done so much of good stuff. They have done so much of great stuff that we tend to think that, okay, you know what? Maybe there is something to this. Let's give it a little bit of leeway and say, let's explore it and say, maybe there is something to it. Am I not getting it, or what is it? Let's give it some room to grow or to breathe, and then let's take a call on it, which we don't do in the case of other directors. But that's the way it is, and I'm not apologetic about that at all, because I respect certain creators because they have earned my respect, and I think Selva is definitely one of those people who has earned my respect. So I'm willing to give him these leeways that I'm not willing to give certain other people. No Bozi says, I was left completely baffled at the end of the movie. After seeing these theories, I'm more confused. Join the gang, dude. Who is NGK? Is he good? Is he bad? Is he good turned bad to do good? Please explain his character. Like I said, that was a big problem for me. Is he a good guy who does bad in order to ultimately, do good, the good that he wants? That is, like I said earlier, is he a guy who says you can't make an omelette without breaking some eggs, even if 2 of those eggs are his own parents? Or is he a guy who says, I want to do good, but I kind of, he just became, he was so seduced by power that he became bad and he started lusting after power. It's very difficult to say, go with one of these theories. And I think that was a big, I walked out of the movie going, who the hell is this guy? Let me into his head. I think, please explain his character, is what a lot of people are saying. Raja_RD says, do NGK wait for his friend to kill himself so that he can gain attention from the masses? Whenever he says Kattukana, is it a step-by-step improvement of becoming the evil NGK to do anything for winning the election? See, that friend killing himself is a very important part of the screenplay, because it's a big turn. But I'll tell you why. Again, it's a little confusing. I would have liked that scene if NGK initially was reluctant to stab this friend, but then he saw the wisdom in what this guy was saying and said, okay, I'm going to stab you, right? But what happens is that man catches Surya's hand and literally stabs himself. So we can never blame Surya for what happened. You cannot say Surya killed the guy. It's the guy killed himself. So in the first half, it's still not. So had Surya stabbed the guy, then that would have become a major turning point in the character, because now you're seeing that this guy is like, whether, because not all of us is going to say, it's like euthanasia, right? It's like, supposing somebody or love is lying on a hospital bed and they're saying, okay, I'm really suffering, pull the plug or switch off the ventilator or whatever it is, we would hesitate. We would not like randomly do it. But if we do it, that's a major turning point in the character. That's not happening here. It's like they're reaching out and pulling, like stopping the ventilator or pulling the plug themselves. How does that affect Surya? He's waking up with blood on his hands, but is that really what the motivation point was? It's very hard to say. That's again what I'm going back again and again to the thing in the movie. Everything that happens, it's very hard to correlate with the NGK character and said, how did it affect this guy? That's the big thing in this movie. Rajiv says, what do you think about the much talked about, rather criticized role of Sai Pallavi? I liked her performance and I found best suit as it's an eccentric characterization, but surprised to see so many critics calling it overacting. I think it's called overacting only because we're not getting the motive behind it. See, when somebody suddenly starts like this thing, we don't see that character grow at all. Is she a calm and peaceful woman who kind of, becomes like this because she's unable to, take... I'll give an example of Mudalvan, right? You have the Manisha Koirala character. You see that she's getting frustrated by the fact that she's not able to meet Arjun anymore, and then you are very clear about where she is at every point. She kind of likes the fact that he's doing this, but then she doesn't like the fact that she's not getting any time with him anymore. What is it with Sai Pallavi? Are we getting, is that the motive? What is it really going on inside her head? Apart from the other people's heads, again, we don't know what is happening inside these heads. Sri Ramanan says, you spoke about grammar in your review, but don't we all speak about breaking the grammar and doing something different? Yeah, you have to break the grammar in your review. When I said in my grammar, I said, when the film, see, I follow this philosophy in any film, right? I mean, of course, there are exceptions, but in general, the first 15 to 20 minutes sets the tone, the pattern, the grammar, the way the story is going to be told, the way these characters are going to be established. It lays out the world of the movie. This is going to be the lighting, this is going to be the editing style, this is going to be the acting style, this is going to be the thing. Now, I'm not saying that these cannot be deviated from, but by and large, even if the deviations occur, there have to be something that triggers that deviation. Okay, now if you start a movie like this, you build a universe like this and say this is the lighting, this is the thing, you have very soft, gentle lighting, and suddenly you're like putting glares on the character, something should explain, or we should sense the fact that this is why the glares are being used. Otherwise, you're just looking at tonal inconsistency throughout. That's what I mean by grammar. The grammar that is established in the first 20 minutes of this film is, I'm going to explain why Surya went into politics, why this thing happened, all these details are explained. Oh, he had all these 500 people who lost all these jobs, and who rather gave up all these jobs. They're doing organic farming, so he feels responsible for them. All that is being laid out. We are in Surya's head at every point of the way till he goes to this Illavaras's house. And even when he starts acting like the Stondan and doing all these things, you feel, so okay, so he's now learned that this is the game, and whatever it is, that is the game that he's playing. But suddenly from there, where suddenly for a bit it looks like a comedy movie is doing like a satire kind of thing, where we're going to see a fun movie about how this guy does all these things. Because you look at the exaggeration in the bathroom Shining, right? You actually see those sparkles and all come up in visual effects. That's the exaggeration. Is not a naturalistic movie. Suddenly going into a slightly heightened, absurd zone. But then, after that, this transition is easy to take, because we started off seeing this, and then this thing happened. But then after this, everything that happens is not cluing us into what happened in the movie at all. And I think that is what I mean by grammar, rather than saying grammar should not be broken. I'm not saying that the only way to show an affair is by showing two people sleep together. I'm just saying that we should know what these individuals are thinking about that affair, what is the consequences of the, in other words, again I'm coming back to this thing, we need to be inside these people's heads and know how this affair has changed things. How is, this affair, is it just a disposable thing to Surya, or is it something that he feels ashamed about, or is he slowly stopped caring, or what it is. Basically, that whole thing about being inside the protagonist's head, I think that's what I missed most in this movie. Thank you so much for your questions. There are many more questions, and I'm going to watch this movie again, so probably, maybe we'll have another discussion at some point. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next episode of Ask BR. Till then, keep watching Film Companion South.